Okay, so let me check if the recording has started or not. Yes, it has. So welcome to week 8 of the NPTEL session on C programming. And today we will be covering in depth on functions, and then we will be using functions for doing a few tasks, which would be from the previous year's assignment. And hopefully this will give you enough of an exposure to functions so that you will also be able to answer the questions from this year, and you will be confident in programming in C using functions. So let's get started. So let me start by sharing my screen. Okay, I hope you all can see my screen. Can you please confirm so that I can proceed either in chat or by unmuting? Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so let's get started. I'll first be discussing some of the assignments. So let's first discuss that. Let me make this full screen. Okay, right. So let's first discuss some of the assignment questions, and then specifically for today, I'll be first starting with the MCQs, and then we will be also discussing the programming questions. So let's start with the MCQs now. Okay, so what a function prototype is used for? So you have a prototype of a function, which is like declaring the function to the compiler so that it knows that this is a function which returns this something of this type, and then these are its arguments. So and then later on, it's up to you to create the function, but you can also have a function declaration and the definition of the function where you write the main body of the function later on. So as far as the declaration is concerned, that's something called a function prototype. So it just tells the compiler of the kind of arguments that's used in the function. So the right answer is C. Here, telling the compiler the kind of arguments used in the function, right? So what's the default return type of a function? So this is specific for C, that if you have a function where its default return type is int, if you do not mention anything. Otherwise, whatever you mention, that's the return type of a function. But if you do not mention anything, the default one is integer or int. Okay, so now let's move on to the third question. What is the error in the following program? As you can see, the error here is that there is a ternary operator which is being used. So this question mark colon is a ternary operator, and you cannot have return statement inside a ternary operator. Instead, what you have to do is you have to provide return only once, and then you have to do 20 question mark 10 colon 20 is what you can do. Return. So what I mean by this is a greater than, so you can do something like return a greater than 20 question mark 10 colon 20, but you cannot have return two returns inside a colon thing. So that's not allowed. That's syntax error in C, and hence that is the error which is being in here. So the right answer to this question is option A, where error return statement cannot be used with conditional operators. So that's what is the right answer in here. Okay. So now the next question is how many times high is going to get printed. So at this point, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask by either unmuting yourself, or you can also write it on chat. I'll be happy to answer. So I'll be occasionally checking my chat every now and then. So hopefully I'll be able to catch whenever you post any questions, or you can also unmute yourself and ask. Feel free to do that. Okay. So how many times high will be printed in the following code? So you see you have an int I and int fun. So this is what is meant by the function declaration or a function prototype. You see here, you just tell the compiler that there exists a function fun which has no arguments passed to it, and its default and its kind of return type is an integer. And this is kind of the function prototype or function declaration. And later on, you create fun. You see that fun is int fun you created, and it's printf high. So that's what gets printed in here. And you see here, you go into the main function, and you see that while I, but you see that the value of I is not being assigned anything. So it's just int I, so it's declared but not assigned. So then this would mean is that this while condition will remain false. And if the while condition remains false, then only thing that is going to get printed is hello and nothing else. So this will be 0 times. So the right answer here, or the right option here, is 0 times, because this fun function will never be called because this while condition is always false because there is no value assigned to I. It's just int I. Okay, so now let's move on to the next one. Here you see what is the output of the C code given below, which is this C code that you see. So you again have a function prototype or a function declaration in here where you have a function which returns float and its argument takes an array which is whose name is age and it's an array of type float. You see, so now you go into this main function and you see that that you first create a floating point like a float variable which is called result and a float array which is called age, and you have all these values. And now you got the result equals to fun age. So now what this means is that to this function the age which is the array in here is passed. So now we go to the definition of this function func, where you see what's happening is there is an int I and you just have a for loop which goes through all the elements in the array. So you see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 elements in this array. So you go from I equals to 0 to I less than 6. And if you recall an array, always in C, the count starts from 0. So you have 0 to 5 because 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because 5 is less than 6. And whenever you have 6, you come out of this for loop, right? And what is done in here is that the sum which was initially assigned to the value of 0 gets the age gets added. So every element in the age, every element in this age array is getting added to sum, and at the end it's getting divided by 6. So what basically this is doing is finding out the average of age among all the elements in this array. So it's finding out the average of this element, and the average, if you calculate it, you will see that this is something 27.083334. But here you see that the result that you see in here is 0.2f. So what this percentage 0.2f would mean is that you only want 2 decimal places after the decimal point. So just because of that you just need 2 decimal places, the number will be rounded off to just include 2 decimal places. So what you'll have at the end is 27.08. So the right answer is option A, 27.08, because of this percentage 0.2f in here. Okay, so I hope this is clear. If not, then please put in your questions and I'll be happy to answer. Okay, so now let's move on to the next question, where you see it requires what will be the output of this program, which is hash include stdio.h int main. So you see, again, there is a for loop which goes from 0 to 5, sorry, 0 to 4, because I less than 5. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it goes till 5 times, and I plus plus. And now this function, this program I find is quite interesting because it illustrates the local and global variable, the concept of local and global variables. Here you can see that there is an int I which is declared outside the function, outside this for loop. And this I is actually what is determining the looping here, the for loop. So the I in for loop is same as the I which is being declared. But inside the for loop, you have another I which is I equals to 10. And this I is different from the I which is outside the for loop. And therefore, whenever the for loop comes back, a new every time in every iteration, a new integer which is int I gets created, and this is at a different address, and this is in the memory, and this is a different variable compared to I which is outside. So because it's inside the scope of this curly braces of the for loop, and because of that every time it's reinitialized back to 10. But the I which determines how many times the for loop will run gets remains unaffected because it's a different I. It's a global variable I which is outside this for loop. So what will happen at the end is that you'll have an iteration which will go 5 times, and every time what's getting printed will be 10. So the right answer or the right option here is 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. So 5 tens are getting printed with a space because you also have a space in here in the printf statement, right? So that's the right answer. So I don't see any questions. So I'll just move on to the next question in here, which is how many times the factorial function will be executed. So you see, this is like standard function which is used for finding out the factorial of a number. And you see this int factorial is what is being is the function which finds out the factorial. And what it does is that whenever the value of n is 0, then it returns 1, else it's done returns n times factorial of n minus 1. So then what this means is that if you give a value of 10, this will go from the, the first time when you call factorial of n, this function gets called and you have 10, and then you then call factorial of 9 because 10 minus 1 is 9, and you keep on doing this unless you hit 0. So you have everything from 1 to 10, and on top of that you also have 0, where the value which is returned is 1, right? So the recursion here is occurring 11 times. 1 to 10 is 10 times plus 1 because of the 0, which is the last term which is with which this function is called. So you have a total times of this factorial is called is 11 times. So I hope this is clear. So whenever you have any number n, then the number of times this factorial is going to get called is n plus 1 times. So now here n is 10, so you have 11 times. Still, there are no questions from your end, so I think I can go on to the next question, where you have a function which is trying to swap two numbers. So you see it takes int a and int b. There is a new variable called temp to which a is assigned, and then a equals to b. So the value of b gets assigned to a, and then value of b is then reassigned to temp. And then the function is just ending. So it's a void function. So now you have int num10, num1 equals to 10 and num2 equals to 20. So before swap, you have obviously the two numbers 10 and 20, which is getting printed. And after swap, you are supposed to find out what will be the value of num1 and num2. So here comes the concept of call by reference and call by value in C. You see that this is an integer. So since these are integers, so the way this works is that this is a call by value. So what happens under the hood in the C programming language is that whenever you are calling swap, the copies of num1 and num2. So the value in num1 and value in num2 is getting copied to a and b variable in here. So the a and b variable are actually different positions or different addresses in the memory, and num1 and num2 are different addresses in the memory. So what's happening in here is that although you are changing the values of a and b inside the function, this is not getting reflected in here in num1 and num2, because num1 and what happened in here is that the num1 and num2 are not directly passed as a and b. Instead, num1 and num2 are copied, and then they are copied values, which is 10 and 20, are passed to a and b. So what's happening in here is that after you come out of the function, the values a and b kind of variables are getting destroyed because this lives only inside the function, and the values of num1 and num2 remains unchanged. So even before and after swapping, the swapping does nothing in principle in here. So this is kind of a wrong implementation of swapping which is happening, and this is because the function arguments are passed by value. So in order to have this properly work, what you need to do is you have to pass this thing by reference, or you have to pass pointers in here. And if you use pointers to a and b, then it refers to the same memory or same address as num1 and num2, and then this program would work. But the program as it stands like this, the swapping doesn't work. So num1 and num2 remains unchanged even after calling swap. So the right answer here is option A, where 10 and 20 before swapping, and after swapping it still remains 10 and 20. Okay. So now let's go to the next question. But before that, let me check if there are any questions on chat. No, I don't see there are any questions on chat. So I'll just then go on to the next question, where you see the question here is that you have been asked to find out what this function is doing. So here you see that there is an if statement inside this func, and you takes in 3 arguments, a, b, and c. So let's look at the first condition in the if statement. You see what it means, that a greater than or equals to b, and c less than b. So what this means is that you have a b, which is, if you wish, is a value which is between a and c. So it's the middle value in terms of its the size of its of the integer which is passed, and that is what is getting returned if this condition is satisfied, which is a greater than equals to b and c less than b. So that would mean is that b is a number which lies somewhere between the values of a and c, and that is getting returned. But if this condition is not satisfied, but a is still greater than b, then there is a swapping in the, then function is again called, but the arguments of b and c are swapped. Then and if still this is not kind of satisfied, then the default thing is that then C is kept intact and the values of A and B are then swapped and the function is again called. So what this function does at the end is it finds out the middle value. So it finds out, like, if you have something like a 5, 6, and 7, then it will return 6. And similarly, you can have it in any order, but it will just give you the value which is kind of midway, or which is kind of greater than one of the values and less than the other. So it kind of gives you the middle number. So the right answer here is C. You can also write this code yourself just to convince that this is what is happening. And at this point, if you have any questions, please unmute and ask yourself, or you can put this on chat. Otherwise, I'll just move on to the last MCQ in here, where you have been asked to find out the definition of this function, and you just been asked to find out what will be the output when you integer put in certain values. So let's see what the function is. So you have a int f, so this means that the function returns an integer, and its input, or it just takes one argument, which is j, which is also an integer, and you have a static int I equals to 50. So what this static keyword means is that this every time the function is called, the value it remembers what is the value of I from the previous call. So the value of I doesn't get reassigned to whatever. So if you had not had this static keyword, and if you have something like int I equals to 50, then that would mean is that the value of I always gets reinitialized 50 every time f is called. But if you have static int I equals to 50, then that would mean is that inside the function, if you change the value of I in some way or the other, and then you again call the function, then the value of I, which was previously the state of I in the previous call of the function, will be remembered. So that's what the static keyword does. And then you have int k, and then you have I equals to j, then it does something where the I is again, this f function is again called, and else it returns 0. So let's think about some value which is, so you see in every time your I is 50 and I is nowhere changed to anything else. So I remains 50, right? And here you have I equals to j. So what this means is that if you put in any value of j, which is not equals to 50, this if block is not going to get satisfied, and then the function is going to return 0. While if you do something like have a value of j which is 50, then this if block is satisfied, and if this if block is satisfied, then this if block is going to get evaluated, and then you have a value of k which is equals to f of I. Right, so then again f is getting called, and the value with which it is getting it will get called is 50. So this remains 50, and I is never changed. So now you go into an infinite loop, or you just kind of exhaust the calling runtime stack, because you are in an infinite loop. So it depends on what kind of system the code is running on. You either go into an infinite loop, or you just encounter a memory error, but after recursing through the function and overshooting the recursion limit in your computer. So the right option in here would be the function will exhaust the runtime stack or run into an infinite loop when j equals to 50, but the function runs fine for any other values of j, where it just returns 0. So that's kind of the idea in here. So we are at the end of all the MCQs, and if you had any questions, please feel free to ask in here, or you can also put that on chat. Otherwise, I'll just wait for a minute and then move on to the programming assignments. So I think we are having 4 such programming assignments for this week, and I'll be covering one by one at a time. Okay, then let's move on to the first program in here, which is asked to find out the HCF of 4 numbers. So let me open up VS Code. I already have a hello world program in here, but we will be modifying this to find out the HCF of 4 numbers. So let's write a function, right? So int HCF. So int A and int B. So what this will do is that it will find out the HCF of 2 numbers, and then what I will going to do is that whenever I have something like four numbers, then this I'll be calling HCF 2 times in this in a nested form. So this will be clear once I write this. So first, let's first implement a function having each which can find out the HCF of 2 numbers, and then we will move on to 4. Okay. So what I'm going to do is if okay, if b not equals to 0. So this is the first part of the function. Then I'll do something like return HCF of a percentage HCF of b comma a percentage b. So a percentage b would mean something like a modulus, or else I'll return a. So what this would do is that it will keep on uh, doing it until you have hit kind of a place where you can no longer divide. So this is b not equals to 0. That means to that. Otherwise, it keep on finding out the remainder. So this is the function. This is a recursion, and you see that HCF is called once again. So this is kind of recursing through the thing. Okay. So once I have this, let me take in the number and so first let's take. So we'll be taking 4 numbers, right? So these are the 4 numbers which will be taken in. So let's taking the 4 numbers in here. So, okay, now you see I've taken in the 4 numbers, num1, num2, num3, num4. And once I've done that, what I'll do is I'll find the HCF of the first 2 numbers, and then I'll find the HCF of the third and fourth number, and then I'll print out that the HCF of and then the HCF of both the numbers of the 4 numbers together will be the HCF1 comma HCF2. So then the HCF of the other 2 numbers will be calculated once again, right? So now I'll do something like this, that the HCF of the numbers is this. And let me put in the numbers as well. So this will be the 4 numbers that I'll put in. And these are going to be num1, num2, 3, and num4. So these are the 4 numbers that are going to get printed. And I give a /n in here just to let's have it in a nice way, but I mean, it's up to you how you write it. Let's have it whatever. Okay, so let's save this and run this code now. Okay, so let's see what are the test cases that has been asked. So it's 50, 455, 60, and 200. So let me put this in. The 5, 60, and 200. So the HCF is 5. So you see that the HCF of this is 5. So let's try one other case where it's a different value. So let's see this. Let's try the test case 4. $49. Let me make this a little bit larger so that it's easier to see. 56, 147, 21. 56, 147, 21. So the HCF of the numbers is 7. So you see that this is working as expected. This is kind of the program which gives you the HCF of the phone numbers. If there are any questions right now, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, I'll just move on to the next programming assignment. Okay, I hope that this is clear. Then I can move on to the next question. Let's see. Write a C program to find the power of a given number and using recursion. So it's like 5 cube is 125, 16 cube is 4096. So you have been asked to use recursion to find this. Okay. So the way this works is that if you remember that the power of any number is that number times the power of the number minus 1, right? So and you do this recursion like n times so that you get the number at the end. So let's then modify this. You have something like a pow, and you have int base, and you have int exponent with which you want to make the power, right? And then what you do in here is that if pow, if exp, so you have the exponent, right? Equals to 0, then you return 1, right? Else you just return base times, you again call pow and base of exp minus 1. So you keep on doing this, and this is going to multiply the base n number of times using this recursion thing. Okay, so let's now get rid of all of these. Then int, so we'll take a base and exp. So printf enter base, right? So now we are going to take in the base, and similarly, just enter the exponent, take in the exponent, and then I just here we'll call pow with the base and exponent and get the answer in here, right? So this is a very simple function. So now let's run this, and let's now try the test cases in here. 5, 3. So your base is 5, exponent is 3, and so 5 cube is 125. So I think this is running pretty well. Let's try the next example as well. So 10, 4, or something like 16 cube, right? Your base is 16 and exponent is 3, and your 16 cube is 4096. Okay, so this works very well, as you can see. And here, again, just to reiterate, what you have in here is that we are using the property of exponent that a to the power of n, a is any number, and is equals to a times a to the power of n minus 1. So that's kind of the property of exponents that we are using, and we will do this until we hit an exponent of 0, where a to the power of 0 is 1. So we return just 1. And here, this is how this exponent is working out. Please feel free to ask any questions if you have any doubt anywhere in this code or anything which we have discussed till now, and I would be happy to answer. Yeah. Okay, then let's move on to the next question. So this is write a C program to find out the binary equivalent of a number using recursion. So here the question is, you will enter a binary number. You will enter a decimal number, and you are supposed to find out the binary value of that number using recursion. And then we will be again using a function. This. So let's write and create that function. We will call this dec2bin. So what this will do is that this will convert decimal to binary. So that's the function, and we will take in the number now, right? And the body is obviously going to change. So let's see. So what we are going to do is that if first we are going to right. So this is the return thing that we are going to do. So what this means is that if num equals to 0, then we are going to return 0. So this is the case where we are using a ternary operator. And you can see in here is that as this was also encountered in the previous MCQs, that you cannot put in the return within the ternary operator, but have only one return. And this entire thing is part of the ternary operator. So what this means is that whenever num is equals to 0, we return 0. And when num is not equals to 0, then we do this. And here you can see that I am calling the same function in here, which is dec to bin. And because I'm calling dec to bin once again, this is a recursion. So then what this means is that I'm calling the same function within itself. So I'm recursing over this function. And what I'm doing in here is that I am taking in the, so since decimal has 2 digits, 0 and 1, so this needs to be divided by 2, and this percentage is the modulus operator. So I take the remainder, and once I take the remainder, I pass the number which I have divided by 2, so the half of that number to dec to bin to continue the process of just dividing it by 2 and taking the remainder. So, and I keep on dividing the number by 2 and take the remainder of it until I hit 0, where I know that I have reached the end, and I then return the function returns 0. So that's all. And then we are now going to take in the number, right? So here we take in the number and enter a decimal number, right? And we are going to scanf. So this is nothing but takes in the number in here. And then we do a binary equivalent of that number is obviously calling dec to bin with that number, right? So let's run this code. So now it asks for the decimal, enter a decimal number. So let's see what are the test cases. So there's 30. So let's then try this test case of 30. So it's 11110. So let's see the output 11110. So that exactly that this is what the output that's needed. So 11110. All right. So now let's try the 111, the next case, just to see if this is working or not. And you see, this is the result. So you have 110, and then you have 4 ones. And exactly that is what we get, 110 and 4 ones. So this code seems to work very well. And you can see what we have found out is that the decimal equivalent of this number. So if you have to find an octal equivalent or a hexadecimal equivalent, it's very simple. You just have to replace this 2 by 8 or 16 respectively, whatever you are doing, right? And because in octal you have 8 digits, and you in hexadecimal you have 16 digits, so this 2 gets changed to 16 or 8, whatever the case and whatever you are dealing with. Okay. I think this fairly explains, and if you have any doubt, please feel free to ask right now. Int okay. Where did I do x colon integer? I did not do something like x colon integer. Instead, what I did in here, if you see, is that I used a question mark and colon. So this is the ternary operator of an if-else statement. You can also break it down into an if-else statement, but just to have things in just one line, I have used this. But I don't think I have used anywhere fun x colon integer. Can you clarify what you mean by this? I'm not sure. Yeah, you can unmute yourself and ask as well, or you can put this on chat. I'm not sure what do you mean by int colon integer. Yeah, can you please clarify what do you mean by int fun x colon integer? Please unmute yourself and ask, or you can also put in chat.
But it was off like
Sorry, you are not audible to me.
it's audible, sir.
Sorry. Sorry, you're not audible to me. Can you?
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Uh,
Yeah, I can hear you. Please. You don't seem to be audible. Can you put this on chat? I'll be happy to answer. Can you put your question on chat? Yeah, please go ahead and put your question on chat because I'm not able to hear what you are saying. Okay, which question do you mean? Let me go to the question. This is which question? Because these were programming questions, right? So assignment 8, 9th question. Okay, in the MCQs, you mean? So you mean the MCQ question, which is this? Okay, okay. Here. So, but here I don't see anything like a x colon integer in here. Like int fun x colon integer, I don't see anything like that in this question number 9, right? Assignment 8, ninth question, yeah. Here I don't see anything like a x colon integer. And rather, I don't see any colon in here. Anyways, I think what I can do is that I'm sharing my email ID. You can just take a screenshot of the question and just send that to me. I'll be able to then answer that. Yes, sure. Let me go to question 6. Yeah. So here you have the concept of local and global variables, which is quite interesting. So you see that there is an int I. So what's happening in here before the beginning of the for loop is you are creating a variable which is int I. And you have an I equals to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. So what this means is that you are having a for loop which will go 5 times because it starts from 0 and goes till 4. So you have 5 times. But if you look at the go to the inside of the for loop, you create another variable which is also named I. But what this means is that this variable is a local variable, so it only lives within the braces of for. And this variable is a different variable in terms of the where it stays in the memory, and it is not the same variable as the I which is outside the for loop. So the for loop is controlled by a different I, and inside the for loop you have a different I. So what's happening in here is that every time you have this for loop coming and getting, and the I and this I which is that in the definition of the for loop I equals to 0, this corresponds to the I which is which has been created outside the for loop. And every time you iterate through and you go through the inside of the for loop, a new variable I gets created with the value of 10. That 10 gets printed and that same I is getting updated from 10 to 11. But whenever you come out of the for loop, that I is going to get destroyed, and then you move on to the next value of I, and this I corresponds to the global I, which is outside the for loop. Now I becomes 1, you go inside a once again, and then again I equals to 10. This is the local I, which again becomes 10. 10 gets printed, it becomes 11, and then again this loop goes on. So what you have and what is getting printed is 10, and how many times this 10 is going to get printed is depends on the global value of I, and it's from 0 to 4, so it's getting printed 5 times. So that's why you have 5 tens which are getting printed in here in this MCQ question. Okay, okay. Thanks, thanks. I hope this explains. And then let's move on to the programming question. So let's see. So write a program to reverse a given word using function. So you just put in a function and we are going to reverse that and going to get printed, right? And you see there are some certain examples which are shown in here. So let's write this code. So now we will have it's just we'll print something. So we'll have a void. I will call it reverse. Let's reverse, and we'll this is something like uh, yeah, please if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, I think it's just the participant has just forgotten to mute. I'll mute the participant for now, but please unmute and ask if you have any question. Okay. So let me get rid of this. Right. So this is getting the character. Right. And I'll do something like I'm going to go do a reverse in here. And for that, what I'm going to do is I will first check. So let's first take C equals to star str. So I'm taking a string, kind of a string array in here. So that's like a string pointer, which is a pointer to a character array. So that's what I take in. And I just then they do this and then check if C not equals to /0. So that what was that going to mean is that, so if you remember from the previous assignment that in C, every string is null terminated. So we'll have a string which is null terminated. So the end character in the string will be a /0, which is a null character. So what I'm going to do in here is that I'm going to kind of go through the string until I hit a /0. So this /0 means a null termination. And at the end, whenever I do that, I just will not do anything. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call str+1. So what this would do is that it will just call the reverse with just the next character, right? And this is how this will work. And after that, I just print the character. So what this would mean is that it will start calling it from the very first element in the string, and this will move on to the last element, and then things are going to get printed from last to first, right? So this is what will happen in here. So now let me take in a string. So let's just not have something like this, but have just a string. Now I'll just do an enter a string. I'll take the string, right? And then I'm going to call reverse. Okay. So let's try to run this code. Enter a string. So now let's test something which is in here. So let's try the test case computer, and then we'll try say NPTEL. Yeah, computer, and you see it's getting reversed. So this is working very fine. And now let's try NPTEL as well. NPT, right? And LETPA. And if you look at in here, you have LETPN is what is getting printed in here. And you also have computer, which is getting printed, right? So, okay. So you see this is working very well. And you can try other test cases as well. Let me try one more thing. Let's try what the other thing that was in here. And okay, you see everything is working pretty well. And here, just to reiterate, what's happening is that I'm calling reverse with the string, which is nothing but an array of characters, which is terminated by a null character. So that's how strings are defined in C. That the last character has to be a /0 whenever the string ends. So as soon as reverse is getting called, what's happening is that I go and check. I just take the position of the pointer in, and I just check what's the value in here, which I put in. And if that is /0, then I do nothing. If that's not /0, then I come in here and I see. I again call reverse with the next element, and then I do the print. Because the print is after reverse, what's happening is that first all the functions are getting called. Uh, all the reverse are getting called by one for every element in the string. And at the end, then things are getting printed from the end to the beginning. If the printf has been if before reverse, then the same string that you are putting in will get printed. But since the printf is coming after reverse, what's happening is that the print is happening from right to left, while strings that you have entered is obviously from left to right. Okay, so that's how this reverse is working. And this star str is basically telling me what's the value at that pointer. So this is an str plus one is using the pointer arithmetic, and it is just going from one after the other, like from the first character to the second and third. So you get one character at a time in here with this. So I hope this is clear. If not, you can again ask. Feel free to ask any questions that you want, wherever you feel that this is you have some confusion on this. Okay, then I'll move on to the last question in here, where the question is you are asked to find out the express a number as a sum of two prime numbers if possible. If not, then you just say that it's not possible. So this is the kind of the last programming question for this week. But let's wait for a while. Check if there are any questions. Okay, then I think this is the time when I do the last question, where you are asked to find out how you can uh, express a given entered number as a sum of two prime numbers, if possible. If not, then you just say that this is not possible. So for that, we have to first create a function which will determine whether a number is prime or not, right? So int is prime is what I'm going to call this function, right? And I'll put an int n, right? So now what I'm going to do is, what happens in prime numbers is that you just divide it by, you keep on checking from I equals to some one, from two, because start from two, right? And you keep on checking till you go to n by two. And whenever, and if that is not divisible by I till any number from two to n by two, if that is, that cannot divide your number n, then by definition, this is a prime number. Otherwise, this is kind of a number which is not prime, so it can be then divided by any number. So there's a divisor that exists for this, right? So this is the thing. So what this function would do is that whenever you enter a number n, if it returns kind of zero, then you will know that this is not a prime number. But if it returns one, then you know that this is a prime number. So that's what is prime is going to do, right? So now let's take in the number from the user. And once I've taken in the number, I just do a check first. So this just checks whether the number is prime or not, just to see if this is working. And if this is not working, then we will have to again see what are the places that we need to edit the code. So let's first check if our prime number testing is working or not. So let's try 8, which we know is not a prime number. So 8 is not a prime number. This is working. And now I'll test 5, 7, right? And 7 is a prime number. So obviously you see that this part of the code works fine, and we are able to correctly find out the prime number. So then I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm now going to take in two numbers, which I'm going to just find out the sum of this two, right? So for what I'm going to do in here is that I'm going to go from I to num by 2. Again, I'm going to num by 2 because I'm supposed to express a number as a sum of two numbers. So I'm going to go till num by 2, and then n. So the one, if one of the number is I, then the other number is num minus I. And I need to check whether I and num minus I both are prime. If both of these are prime, then only it can be expressed as a sum of two prime numbers, otherwise not, right? So if is prime I and is prime num minus I. So if both of these are true, right, then only I can write something like this can be I num minus I, right, and num. And if so, let's also give an integer thing, which is success, INTSUCCESS equals to 0, right? And now so when I can do this, I will set success uh, equals to 1. Otherwise, success remains 0. And after I've come out of it, I just print no two prime sum numbers can be no two prime numbers can sum up to num, right? If not success, right? And this is what I'm going to get printed. So let's try this then. Enter a number. So let's see what's the number that first we can take in. So let's try this 10. And so, okay, I forgot the break statement. So I can just do it at the end. Okay, so let's do this /n. So I just forgot this /n thing. So let's try this. Right, so let's try this. So, okay, you see that there are two possible possible ways how you can do it. One is 3 plus 7 and the other is 5 plus 5. So those are the two things that is going to get printed in here, right? So these are the sum of two things that you can do. Similarly, let's try the other ones. So here, the other case is 13. So let's try this. So you see it's 2 plus 11 is 13. So here you see it's 2 plus 11. So yeah, this is working fine. Then next let's try 11, which is not going to work as per the test case. And but let's see, but it still shows it. So I think we are definitely doing something wrong. So let's check what we are doing. So for that, let me go into the debugging mode and see what's happening in here. So let me try this 11 thing. So here we are. I think let's stop this. Put in a breakpoint in here. And let's debug this code once again. Okay, so let's put in 11. So we know that here we have come in. So we check from 2 and so 2. So there we start with 2 and you have a so you have something like a I equals 2 and 7. Right, so this, so let's see, is prime 2 is going to give you, so let's stop this code. Let's do something like both of these has to be prime. So let's be explicit about it. Yeah. Now let's check. So still get this thing. So something is happening in here. So let's check if this why is this getting printed, which obviously we don't want, because obviously you see that the 4 is not a prime number. So this is not giving the right value. So let's check what's going wrong in here. For that, let me keep a variable tmp1 is prime I and is prime num minus I. So we'll be checking these variables once we as we debug this code. Now let's try 11. We come in here. So is 1. So because 2 is obviously prime, but 11 minus 2 is not prime because, yeah. And therefore, this is not getting satisfied. We come in here. We have 3. So 3 is obviously prime. So we have this, and then 11 minus 3 will be 9. Will be, let's see, 8. And so let's see if 8 is not obviously not prime. So temp2 is gets to 0, as you can see in here. So we go in, come out, and then I equals to 4. So let's see, temp1. So, okay. This is the problem. You can see that as soon as I put in 4, I see that temp1 should have been should give you 0, because 4 is not a prime number, but you see temp1 is giving you 1. And then this is what's happening. So let's try to fix this. So I think then there is no problem in the part of the code which in here, but I think the problem lies in our is prime function. So let's see what's happening in here. So let's for checking, let's try something like int test equals to prime 4, because we saw that that problem is happening with 4. So just for checking, let me try this and put in a breakpoint in here, and let's run this. Okay. So let's see the value of 4. So it's obviously comes in here. So I starts with 2. Okay. So this is where the problem is happening. You see, I starts with 2 and it should go till 2, right? So it should be less than or equals, and I have given a less. So let's see now. Let's try to debug this once again. Now it will go in, divide, and says it's divided and divisible by 2, and then it will come out. And obviously it gets 0. Okay, I think we are able to fix this. This has to be less than or equals and not less. So because of that, we are missing one division that needed to be done. So let's end this code in here and let's print this then. Okay, so now let's do an 11, and no two prime number can sum up to 11. Okay, so I think now this is working very well. So let's test the other case where it's 7. 2 plus 5, 7. Okay, so all the cases seems to be working. Let's try 18. It is going to print 2 cases for the case of 18. So let's see if we can get it. Yes, we get it. 5 plus 13 and 7 plus 11. So you see 5 plus 13 and 7 plus 11. And let's try the previous case as well, which were 10 and 13, just to check the previous cases are also running fine or not. 10 and 13 plus 11. Okay, so I think we are fine here. The bug previously in the code was that there was a less than sign instead of less than equals. Once we fix this, our prime number calculation is working very fine. And then we are able to get this. Okay, so I think we are at the end of all the questions for this week. And if you have any questions, then please feel free to ask right now, because as you see that we have exhausted all the cases, and all the questions for this year are also similar to these questions. So I hope you will have confidence right now after going through this discussion today to answer all those questions. And right now, please feel free to ask any questions or doubts that you can clarify. Okay, if there are no doubts, then I think we can conclude today's session. And thanks a lot for your time, and thank you for listening. And please also feel free to reach out to me whenever you feel stuck with anything. And I hope you had a productive session here, understanding about functions and how to use them in the C code. And thank you. Okay, I see there is someone who is typing, so let's wait. Okay. Yeah, you are welcome. So thank you. Thank you for your time, and have a nice weekend.